The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just a ghost of you and me. It's just a smoking gasoline. It's just a ghost of you and me. Of you and me.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good, and salutations, everyone. Good evening.
Tonight's going to be a fairly interesting show. We're going to be dealing with some science stuff. We're going to be dealing with aspects of string theory and the multiverse theory, interdimensional travel, a lot of really cool stuff. It's based on solid science that scientists have discovered portals that are opening up, and they've been able to scientifically quantify these portals now. So I've got a whole article on it. I'm going to go ahead and get to that in just a second. But then after I read the article, we'll discuss how this applies to the paranormal world and to a lot of different phenomena that we see all the time. And it could be an explanation for some of it. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get to the article. Tonight's article comes from Gaia.com, and the headline is, "Did Our Ancestors Know How to Open a Portal to Another Dimension?" It's published September 20th, 2018. There are a number of areas across the world known to be energetic hotspots, from ancient megaliths to ley lines. These areas are often alleged to produce hyperdimensional gateways. While we don't exactly know how to open a portal to another dimension, there is evidence the phenomenon could exist, and now it seems science may be catching on to the possibility. Typically, portal areas have some type of electromagnetic significance and are located near large deposits of quartz or other minerals with piezoelectric properties. So it comes as less of a surprise when NASA announced in 2012 that the University of Iowa physicist Jack Scudder found hard evidence of portals created by the interaction between the Earth and Sun's magnetospheres. These portals are extremely volatile and unpredictable, opening and closing in the matter of an instant. But Scudder found markers called X-points or electron diffusion regions, which allowed NASA probes to locate and study them. Thus it launched the Magnetospheric Multiscale Mission, or MMS, which mapped how two celestial bodies' magnetic fields connect, disconnect, and explosively transfer energy, subsequently opening portals. For now, only electrons have been observed to travel through these portals, generating auras and the occasional magnetic storm near Earth's poles. But this discovery could be the key to uncovering the function of some of the legendary portals on Earth that are said to act as gateways to other dimensions. Interdimensional portals. The interdimensional portal has long been a device of science fiction, but it also finds its place within myriad ancient cultures, according to Freddie Silva. Throughout history, we've slowly lost our connection to the Earth, but in times of antiquity, people were able to naturally distinguish energetic fields and hotspots across the land. Our ancestors identified particular places considered energetically anomalous, and in these areas, one finds either a succession of temples or a temple that has withstood the test of time. Silva points to a number of Gothic cathedrals built on grounds originally identified by pagans as being sacred. These energetic locales are considered sacrosanct because they represent areas where our inner temple, the mind, is able to access higher states of consciousness, connecting with extra-dimensional entities or invoking out-of-body experiences. Whether these areas always represented dimensional portals for the mind or a portal for the physical body is up for debate. Graham Hancock references the many stories of native shamans traversing planes of consciousness through the use of psychedelic substances such as ayahuasca. Within this ecstatic state, shamans report meeting teachers and guides, who provide advice and wisdom for living within the everyday realm of our existence. But Hancock also says he believes it is worth considering that there may be something otherworldly to these portal areas, something beyond materialistic comprehension. One location that seems to fit this description is Puerta de Hayu, Marca in Peru, situated on a plateau just off the eastern banks of Lake Titicaca. Puerta de Hayu Marca translates to the Gate of the Gods, reaching 23 feet in both height and width. Hayu Marca appears to be a doorway to nowhere, carved into a rock face in a remote area known as the Valley of the Spirits, or Stone Forest. Legend has it that when Spanish conquistadors came to Peru to loot the Incas' gold, a priest named Amaru Meru used Hayu Marca as a portal to escape. Meru allegedly placed a golden disc, known as the Key to the Gods of the Seven Rays, into a socket in the center of Hayu Marca's carved door, opening a portal and allowing him to walk through the stone, never to be seen again. Hayu Marca rests on a ley line, upon which the famous Gate of the Sun at Tiwanaku also lies in neighboring Bolivia, along with several other important Incan archaeological points. Visitors of Hayu Marca have reported noticeably unusual energy fields there, with some saying they can feel pulsating energy emanating from the rock when placing their hand in its center. Many who have reviewed the ancient site online mention this feeling of elevated or intense energy there. Lake Titicaca nearby was revered by the Incas and considered to be the birthplace of their civilization. It is among the deepest lakes in the world, rumored to contain a lost city and a plethora of treasure, looted by the Spanish. In 2000, the lost temple of Atahualpa was discovered deep below the lake, adding to the mysterious nature of this ancient culture. In more recent lore, a man named Jose Luis Delgado Mamani was said to have rediscovered Hayu Marca in 1996, astonished by what he saw. The Gateway of the Gods looked familiar to him, as he had seen a similar threshold in his dreams with pink marble. Mamani knew instantly that this was the same vision from his reveries. Quote, "When I saw the structure for the first time, I almost passed out. I have dreamed of such a construction repeatedly over the years, but in the dream the path to the door was paved with pink marble, and with pink marble statues, lining either side of the path. In the dream I also saw that the smaller door was open, and there was a brilliant blue light coming from what looked like a shimmering tunnel." Was Mamani contacted by Amaru Meru, the legendary figure who once passed through the stone doorway of Hayu Marca? More scientific evidence. If you talk to most string theorists, they'll tell you it's likely we live in a multi-dimensional universe. In fact, many string theorists believe that beyond our three-dimensional reality, 4 if you include time, there may actually be 10 or 11 different dimensions, all potentially with their own unique law of physics and chemistry. Mikio Kaku likens this to a fish swimming in the water. To the fish, you can swim up, down, left, or right, and everything within your body of water is your universe, your reality. But what if a human lifted you up out of the water? All of a sudden you're in a new dimension, being held by a being breathing without gills and living outside of the water. Entirely new chemistry of living. This being is also moving without fins and walking on solid ground. A new form of physics, different than your own. And though there are some similarities between these two worlds as far as the laws that govern them, i.e. electromagnetic energy and gravity, there are vast differences. Similarly, there may be multiple dimensions beyond our own, of which we can only observe certain signs. Quantum signs that don't seem to fall into a unified theory of explanation, based on the dimensions we're capable of observing. According to the Randall-Sundrum model, developed by Lisa Randall and Raymond Sundrum, we might live in a space that contains a warped and gravitationally heavy fifth dimension, known as the gravity brain, or Planck brain. This theory explains why gravity is the weakest of all the fundamental forces, while also allowing for the possibility that we exist on one of these brains, unable to see reality on the surface of another brain, unless there was some kind of portal. Could it be possible that a confluence of electromagnetic events occasionally opens up a portal into one of these other dimensions or onto the surface of another brain? Could this have anything to do with all of the ephemeral paranormal phenomena that are so seemingly inevitable? Randall plans to test her theory through the use of the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. But whether it will allow us any insight into the possibility of interdimensional travel by way of a portal is up in the air. For now, we'll just have to continue to study the areas our ancestors marked and unlock the codes they left behind. And that is the end of this article. One thing in this article that they talk about is the gravitational pull and gravitational fields between planets and other large celestial bodies. And that is creating these portals that flash open and close, and they only last like a second or two. But one thing that's interesting is everything that is in the larger universe is exactly the same in the microscopic world as well. It just scales up. So it starts in the microscopic world with all the same structures and patterns and everything that the universe contains. And it just gets bigger as you go upscale until you get to the universe itself, the larger universe, filled with galaxies and planets and solar systems, etc. And what's interesting to me is if they're finding these things in the larger universe, then one would assume that the exact same phenomena takes place on the microscopic level. Now, everything has a gravitational field, right? Everything has gravity. Everything acts upon everything else around it, even if it's in just minute little ways. So the forces you're going to be dealing with on the microscopic level are going to be a lot less than on the universe level, but they're still going to be present. So the question that we would have to ask is how much force, how much energy, how much power does it take to open one of these portals? Is it possible that these portals are being opened on the microscopic level as well, just smaller portals? And if that's the case, then is it possible that these portals are also being opened on our realm? And could that explain a lot of this paranormal activity that we see? Could that explain ghosts? Could that explain shadow people? Could that explain a lot of these cryptid creatures that there are sightings of and then nobody can find them? Could it be that all of these things, or some of them, are visitors from another dimension? And I don't mean like they come through the doorway and hang out and then go back. But maybe when these portals are being opened for very short periods of time, we are getting a glimpse of another dimension. So whatever is taking place over there, we're able to see for a short amount of time, and then it disappears because the doorway closes. So in the case of like ghosts, for example, spirits, could it be that what we are seeing is not a dead person or is not some spiritual creature, but what we're actually seeing is a glimpse of someone, a living flesh person, in another dimension, in another realm? The multiverse theory states that there are an infinite number of universes, which means that there is an infinite number of you in these different universes. Each universe has a version of you, and each version of you is a little bit different, but still you. So could it be that what we're seeing is a vision of another universe? One of these portals is opening up and we are actually able to glimpse into it for a very short period of time. And that's why we're getting very short glimpses of ghosts, where you capture it just for a second on camera, or you snap a picture and there it is, but it's not there when you look because it only showed up for a split second, or maybe less than a second. Maybe it showed up for a millisecond. But we were able to capture it on camera because we took a picture at just the right moment to capture that doorway opening and closing. So we actually got a glimpse into that other universe or that other dimension, however you want to say it. Could that be the case? Could it be that in some of these other universes, creatures like Bigfoot, for example, are very common? I believe, and I've said this a bunch of times, I believe that Bigfoot is Gigantopithecus, which was an early hominoid species that was alongside of man and Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal and all these different offshoots of humanity. It's a little bit earlier, but same basic principle. It was another hominoid species. Could it be that in some of these universes, Gigantopithecus did not go extinct, but instead it evolved side by side with Homo sapien. And that is why they're spotted sometimes, because there's a spot where there's a lot of quartz, a lot of crystal that is good energy carrier, and a doorway opens, a portal opens to another dimension, that other universe, and gives us a glimpse of this thing for a short amount of time. Maybe you can actually travel back and forth between these portals. That's an interesting idea as well. Maybe some things can enter into our realm and then leave again, especially if that technology has been developed in their universe to enable them to open and stabilize these portals. Then they could come and go as they pleased. There's a lot of theory out there about how spiritual creatures, ghosts, shadow people, demonic entities, things like that, are able to travel, and how they can enter into your home and leave your home. And one of the most interesting, we actually did an entire episode of Staring On, which is mirrors. Mirrors being a gateway, a exit point on the spiritual interstate, so to speak, to where they could enter into your home through the mirror and then leave again through the mirror and go on down somewhere else and then enter that place as well. That mythology, that lore goes all the way back to Roman times, Greeks. The Sumerians had legends about mirror magic and different things. So that goes way, way back. The idea that mirrors could be a portal or a gateway. And I think it's interesting that we're learning that these portals actually do exist, and they could possibly give us a glimpse into other universes. That's what the scientists are saying. It kind of backs up string theory, it backs up the multiverse theory, but it also backs up a lot of this old lore and legends that the ancient peoples had. And it's very interesting when that happens, because a lot of people discount the ancient peoples. They look at them as if they are in some way less than, when in all reality, they did a lot of things that we can't do today. They were able to build things that we can't build. Me and Old Boy were just, before we went on the air tonight, we were just talking about the idea that giants might have built the pyramids and some of these old ancient monolith structures that we've never been able to figure out how they were able to do the things that they were able to do, how they were able to lift and transport such large stones, how they were able to cut them with such precision and everything. And one of the theories out there is that it could have been giants that built them. And we might end up actually doing an episode of Staring on that topic at some point. But that's a very interesting theory as well. And where did all the giants go? We know that they were here. We have found their bones. I've covered on the YouTube channel and on episodes of Staring and on episodes of Paranormal News many different articles where they talk about finding giant skeletons from the early 1900s and the mid 1800s in different newspapers of the time. And they talk about finding these skeletons and submitting them to the Smithsonian. All of a sudden, everybody says the Smithsonian has never had giant bones. But we have a massive amount of proof that they did at one time, and they've done something with them. I don't know if they've stuck them in a vault somewhere so that nobody can see them and they just are now claiming that they don't exist, or if they lost them or what. But they did have them at one point in time. So where did all of these things go? Could it be possible that the ancient people were able to master this technology? And I'm not talking about like the ancient Romans. I'm talking about long, long ago. Is it possible that a long time ago there was a society, a civilization with technology, but it was just different than ours? Our technology is based on petroleum, on oil, essentially. And maybe their technology wasn't. Maybe their technology was based on crystals. And they messed around with crystals and they found a way to open these portals. Because remember in the article, they say that the portals occur in areas with high concentrations of quartz and other substances like that that are able to harness energy that way. So is it possible that maybe they had technology based on crystals that we don't understand? And they were able to master opening these portals, and even to the point of being able to travel through these portals. Because there's a lot of examples in history of ancient peoples having gateways, and they talked about one in the article, having gateways that they were able to enter the spirit realm through. So is it possible that that spirit realm that they were able to enter was actually another dimension or another universe? That they were actually able to open a portal and travel through? Now, we don't know the answer to that, but it is very interesting. It's interesting that the ancient peoples were able to build structures that would perfectly map different constellations and star patterns. And they could predict with amazing accuracy exactly where light was going to shine through at a certain time of the year that would coincide with whatever festival they wanted to be having. I mean, that kind of stuff's amazing. The mathematics necessary to do those computations, to figure all that out, to be able to figure out where that star is going to be in the sky at the exact day that you want it to shine through the exact spot, and build it so that it does that. That's cool as hell. And that to me says that these people knew a hell of a lot more than we give them credit for. I think that they had a great technology. Plato wrote about Atlantis being a civilization that possessed mind-blowing technology. Technology so advanced that it almost seemed like magic. Now, to me, that seems like a technologically advanced society. And there's no reason to believe that their technology is going to be the same as our technology. I happen to think that we've done this thing many, many times. I think that we've been around and around and around, where mankind has built itself up, got technologically advanced, and then something wiped almost all of us out. Whether it was a weapon that we created ourselves and we ended up blowing ourselves up and only a few survived, or whether it was some sort of plague or some sort of natural disaster such as a worldwide flood. But something took us all out, except for a small group. And then that small group rebuilds the world. Technology advances again, usually in a different way, and then it happens again. Something happens to wipe out most of the people, and then they start over again. And I think this has happened multiple times through our history. We'll never know for sure because a lot of the great old ancient libraries and stuff have been destroyed through war and fires and stuff like that. So we don't know for sure. But I think that would explain a lot of these old legends and a lot of the really cool megaliths and structures that are left from the ancient times that have that capability of harnessing the light from certain stars at certain times of the year, and we're able to track constellations and all that kind of cool stuff. I think that would explain that, the fact that they're technologically advanced. Now, you might say, well, if they were that advanced, how come they developed different technology? Why didn't they just rebuild the stuff they already had? Well, think about that for a second. If something were to happen and the majority of the population of the world was wiped out today, and it was only little small handful of people in different areas that were left, the odds are that the people that actually know how to build a lot of the stuff probably didn't survive. So you have a cell phone, you have airplanes, you have TVs, you have microwaves, you have all these technology. But do you know how any of it actually works? Can you build any of it? If you had to start over again, could you go down to Radio Shack and gather the necessary components and build your own television? Could you build a cell phone from scratch? Do you have that knowledge to make any of that stuff work? Hell, could you even turn on the power plant? Let's say everybody's gone, the electricity's out, the power plant's still there. Can you go there and actually make it run again? Do you know how? No, most people don't. So what I think happens is everybody dies. There's a handful of people left. They don't have any idea how the technology works. They used it, but they don't know how to build it. They don't know how to make it. They don't know how it really works. They can't do it again. So once all of the stuff they have stops working, they can't repair it. They don't know how it works. And so if you extrapolate that out, it's not very long before we're all walking around with sharp sticks again. and swords and stuff and trying to kill animals to eat. And then it just kind of starts its way over again. And we build back up as the generations go. Smart people get born. They figure stuff out. They come up with different new inventions. Technology progresses, but it's not necessarily along the same track as it was before, because the discoveries that are made might be of something completely different. So now the technology, instead of being based on petroleum, is based on crystals or based on dirt or based on whatever. And then they go along that path with different inventions and different technologies until they become technologically advanced. And then they do what humans always do, and that's screw everything up and end up blowing each other up. So then there's a handful of people left again, and they got to restart the whole world again. I think that's happened many, many times in our past. And I think that would be a perfect explanation for a lot of the weird and seemingly unexplainable megaliths and different things that we've found on Earth that we don't have any explanation for. I think that's a very good explanation. So we've kind of run the gamut on this episode. We've talked about portals. We've talked about portals being opened up to allow paranormal entities to cross over to our plane of existence, our dimension, our universe, however you want to call it. There's a lot there to kind of unwrap. It's an interesting idea. It's an interesting topic. And I think that there's probably some truth to it. I don't know how much of it is true, but I think that there's definitely some truth wrapped up in that. I think that there is absolutely a spiritual realm. Now, what form does that realm take? Is that a separate dimension from ours? Is that a separate universe? Or is it something completely different that we just don't understand? Is it something that is parallel to our existence, but not our existence, if that makes sense? Is when you die and you cross over into the spiritual realm, are you able to interact with people here? Are you able to see what's going on here? Or are you in your own little world? Or do you not exist at all? Very interesting questions. Now we know that there's something there because we've communicated with it. We've seen it. You know, we do paranormal investigations. We've talked to these things. We know that they exist. So what the hell are they? Now you have a lot of different trains of thought on that. There's some people that will say that ghosts are just human beings that died and they're still hanging out. You have people that say that ghosts are demons, that they're all demonic entities. And then you have people that have some variation of that say that there are demonic entities out there, there are evil entities out there, and then there are entities that are just kind of there. They're not particularly evil, they're not particularly good, they're just kind of living their own life and doing their own thing. And they really don't give a damn about us. They just kind of go about their own business. I would say that some of all of that is true. In my experience, I have seen ghosts that really don't care that we're there. They don't really want to hang out with us or anything. They just do their own thing. I've had ghosts that are very eager to communicate, but they're not necessarily evil. They don't want to hurt anybody, and they're not nasty. They just want to talk. And they don't try to get you to do anything bad. They don't hurt anybody. They don't bother anybody. They're not creating a disturbance or doing anything wrong. They're just there, and they just want to talk. And then I've also had entities that attack families and do all kinds of horrible things, and you really got to go in there and get them out. So I've seen personally in my life, I've seen all of the above in my life personally. So I think that a little bit of all of that is true, if that makes sense. I don't buy the idea that every ghost and every spiritual thing is demonic. I don't think that's true, because in my experience, that hasn't been true. I also don't think that everything out there is platonic, that doesn't want to hurt you, that is just kind of hanging out and isn't going to bother you. I know that's not true either, because there are demonic entities and there are evil entities that want to hurt you and that want to do bad things. So I would say that it's a combination. Is it going to be possible in the future to create a technology that can cause these portals to open and create portals that are stable, that can remain open for extended periods of time. Once that technology is developed, will we be able to explore the other dimensions or the other multiverses or whatever it is on the other side of that portal? And will we learn that a lot of the things that we believe to be supernatural and paranormal are actually completely normal? They're just from another universe or another dimension. Very fascinating idea, and something that I hope that I'm alive long enough to get an answer to. I don't know if technology will be developed in my lifetime, at least not publicly, to where we can access it to open and stabilize these portals. But if it is, it'll be very interesting to try to answer that question and get that information. So I'm going to throw over to Old Boy and see what he thinks about the article and what he thinks about a lot of the stuff that I've talked about tonight. So Old Boy, go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. Again, this is kind of cool. I never really thought about it. And this is another one of James's shows that he looked up and he found, and it's up his alley, man, you know, portals and stuff like that. It's a possibility. I believe some of it's true. I believe not everything, just like James. Everybody thinks demons are all ghosts or demons. That's wrong. Or aliens. That's a possibility too. But other dimensions, that is something I think the shadow people are. They're from another dimension. I don't think they have nothing to do with being some kind of demon or anything. I just think they're some kind of entity that feeds off of negativity. It's a theory I've had about them. It's not like, you know, demon and stuff like that and just ghosts. Like, I also think that, like James said, I don't think everything's a demon or a ghost. I think there's just things that's happened and bad negativity stays there. Some things that want you to, like a child or a person wants you to solve why they were murdered and somebody didn't get caught and they come to you. I believe that's true. But dimensions, that's a whole nother theory. And I kind of do think some of this stuff is from there. I think some aliens are coming from other dimensions. There's other creatures. That's why it's hard to find Bigfoot. Maybe he is another kind of thing that shape shifts. Like, that's a theory that they go to another dimension. Shadow people, I really do believe that. I believe they come from another. They're just negative. They everywhere they go, they're just negative. There's just different entities, and they come from different worlds. And like Insidious, you remember that? Guys, my wife has that issue. She leaves her body. Things attack. She opens doors. That's another doorway. I think they can come in your dreams too. I have a lot of theories on portals. Time traveling, I think there's portals there too. I think that's that's another theory I have. But like I said, this is my thoughts. It makes sense that some of these paranormal stuff does happen. It's because these portals get open. You know, there's times that they said it portals have opened and like somebody like went through time and saw the war and then went back. I think portals at times that exist too on top of that. You know, I'm not the scientist type like James. The whole portal thing, like this is new to me. I've heard of portals. I mean, everybody knows what a portal is, you know. But this theory, I've heard it a couple of times, but like this is very interesting to me because it does open possibilities that some of these things have come from another dimension, another time. Like it could be the same world. Like me and James are in another dimension. Some people believe that we're in multiple dimensions. We're just different dimensions. And sometimes when you have dreams, you see those other dimensions. That's another theory I have too. That's something a lot of people, you know, what's dreams? Well, maybe that's another dimension we're in. We're just different. And if you ever have dreams, think about it. It's always something different, something weird. People are in it and it just doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying every dream, but like you're just in a different situation. How do we know that these dimensions are just, that's what we see, these windows of dimensions. And that's how it goes through the mind when we go to sleep. You know what I mean? And that's a theory that I don't think a lot of people think about. You know, I'm just throwing it out there because I'm not a big knowing about, you know, portals. Like I know where they probably come from, but I don't know exactly. It could be another world. It could be another universe, another dimension. You know, it doesn't have to be just dimensions either. It could be somebody traveling through time or space. Aliens, I think, use use it. I think that some of these creatures that we see, that's why they disappear. You don't see them. Maybe they're really like that. They're in another dimension. I think shadow people. I think the Mothman may be in another dimension. Like they it comes and it just takes off and you never see it again, and then you see it and it just flies. Maybe it's a creature from another dimension that knows how to do it, like go through that dimension, and then like all this bad negativity show up. And then they say sometimes the shadow men show up, shadow people, just like the black-eyed children. I don't believe they're evil, like demon evil. I believe they're another dimension evil. Maybe that these things come from another dimension. They disguise themselves as human children or people. There's also people, and maybe they're shapeshifters or some kind of magic we don't even know about, like Sumerian magic or so. I'm just going back. There's maybe they talk about the ancient ones before the Nephilim and the devil and all that. That gets into all the biblical, but there's Sumerians used to talk about the ancient ones that was even had nothing to do with the angels of hell and all that. They were from another dimension, like the Cthulhu and all the Lovecraft stuff. That's all other dimension stuff. Crazy creatures that just live in other dimensions. Like if you think about it, like Marvel, like Guardian of the Galaxy, and creatures like that coming and destroying the world. Maybe that's real. Maybe there's other dimensions. Maybe there's other creatures that we don't even know about that come here frequently because they know how to do it. They just run. They run through the portals. That's a theory I'm having. I'm like I said, I'm not really familiar about this stuff. I'm just throwing stuff out there. It was kind of like Hellboy, like that creature came from another. That's another Lovecraft. Like Lovecraft was like crazy, like stories, man. And like now they have shows about him, but it comes a lot about the Necronomicon and portal opening and the dead and the ancient ones, and some of these creatures and demons and things were even worse than you could ever imagine. And they were in all other dimensions and stuff like that. That's why I'm saying, like, he was before his time. That's crazy, some of the stuff he wrote. So that's what I was going to throw that in there. One day I want to do a show about Lovecraft. That would be a cool show because there's a lot of stuff about him, a lot of movies. Evil Dead, the Necronomicon, the Necrocon. What else is there? The Call of the Cthulhu. It's so hard for me to say that word, guys. I'm not trying to kill it, but I know they made a movie. They made a video game about him. God, there's all kinds of different movies. The Book of Blood, The Void's supposed to be about Lovecraft. There's a Lovecraft show on HBO Max. I've been watching a little bit. It's really cool. They got some really cool, weird creatures, man. Lovecraft had, this weird. So that's another dimension thing, guys. Think about that. Some of these paranormal things, these things come out of nowhere and they just disappear. It isn't like Bigfoot, and I think Bigfoot's something too, but like it could be what he was saying too. It could be an ancestor of the giant Pithecus, and it's not like the Loch Ness monster and stuff like this. There's these creatures that come from other places. And I believe that. Another world. Just like Thor and stuff like that. Like they went to different worlds and stuff like that. Maybe not that extreme, but I also think that, there might be something there, guys. Different doorways. Think about it. Why does somebody like the Mothman just disappear? Why do shadow people only show up at certain times? The Man in the Hat. That I think that's another thing from another dimension. I just think there's stuff that's we don't know about. Like Lovecraft was kind of like the Necronomicon. There's always stories with that from a real book. People, there's stories about that they really do have a Necronomicon, and people die trying to get it, and it opens up to another world. And Samaria was really, there's really not a lot about it, but they're saying it exists. So think about it. Maybe it was another world that we don't even know about, and these creatures were there, and then the Nephilim came, and a lot of people think the Nephilim went to Planet X and they just disappeared and they're going to come back, or they're biblical and they were killed. Not all of them are dead. So I mean, that's another story we can get into down the line. I really do want to get into that. Did they build the pyramid? Because I'm the one that told them about that. I just couldn't get the article, find it again. But we could do a show about that soon. But there we go, guys. That's kind of my opinion. I don't know what else to say. So there you go, James.
Yeah, the idea that aliens use this technology is a very interesting idea to me. If they are an advanced civilization, then it would stand to reason that they have technology that far surpasses what we have. Could some of that technology be the ability to open and stabilize these interdimensional portals? And if so, could it be possible that these aliens are not actually from another planet, but they're from another dimension? Could one of these portals be located in the ocean somewhere? Because we have a lot of footage of UFOs flying down into the ocean under the water. Could it be that one of these portals exists in the ocean, down deep, where we can't find it? It's possible. We haven't really explored a lot of the ocean yet. And there's areas like the Mariana Trench, which is way, way down there. And we've only been there a few times, and we can't spend a great deal of time there when we're there, because the pressure is so intense that it'll just collapse your submersible like a tin can. Like you would crush a soda can. So it's not like we've really mapped it and explored it. So if there is a portal like that in the ocean somewhere, that would explain why these ships go down there all the time. These UFOs. And if that is the case, could they be interdimensional beings, not beings from another planet? That's a very interesting idea too. And these portals would exist not just on Earth, they would exist throughout our solar system and throughout the universe. Is it possible that there is a portal out in our solar system somewhere, that these things are able to go back and forth? There's a lot of area out in space that we just don't see. You know, all we're really looking at when we're looking out in space is the reflected light from large heavenly bodies, celestial bodies. So it's very possible that in one of those dark areas of space where there's no real light being reflected back off anything, that there is a portal which just looks black to us, but actually leads to another universe or another dimension. Very possible. Now, another idea that I was thinking about that I think is super interesting, and you guys let me know when this hits YouTube, let me know down in the comment section what you guys think. I mentioned earlier how the microscopic world mirrors the larger world that we know and the universe as a whole. And that got me thinking, the way we look at the microscopic world, something that is in the microscopic world, that is their entire universe to them. They probably have absolutely no idea that we all exist and that there's a larger universe outside of this planet and outside of our own solar system and galaxy, that there's all this other stuff. Because to them, down in that universe, that microscopic realm, that's all they know. Everything else is way too big. So what if our entire universe is just one small speck in another larger universe? The same way that the entire microscopic realm is just a small speck in ours. Does that make sense? That's a very interesting idea. And they kind of touched on that a little bit in the movie Men in Black, where they were trying to protect the universe, and it was just this little bitty marble-like thing that was on I think a cat's collar or something like that. But it was just this tiny little thing. But it was an entire universe inside of there. What if the multiverse theory states that all these universes are kind of stacked on each other like pages of a book? But what if it's more than that? What if it's not just infinite universes stacked on top of each other, but it's also infinite universes inside the other universe? The same way we have the microscopic realm inside of our physical realm, which is inside of the larger universe. What if the entire universe is literally the size of a speck of sand on the beach of another planet that is in another solar system, in another galaxy, in another universe? What if our entire universe is just a speck of sand on that beach? That's kind of a mind-blowing idea. And it would make sense in a way. We think that the universe is everything that there is, but there's really no proof of that. And when we've learned and been able to see smaller things, such as the microscopic world. That's really kind of changed the game as far as the thinking on the larger universe itself. Just a little food for thought. Let me know down in the comment section when this show gets to YouTube what you guys think of that idea and what you think of the idea of there being multiple different universes all kind of inside of each other. That's kind of really interesting when you think about it like that, because when you picture that beach, like our whole universe is just a speck of sand on the beach of another planet, like I said earlier, right? That means that all of those other specks of sand on that beach could very well contain entire universes themselves. That's mind-blowing. And then does it keep going from there? Is that entire universe just a speck of sand on the beach of another planet? You see what I'm saying? Does it keep on going? And if so, how small are we actually when compared to everything else? Because we tend to see ourselves as the end-all be-all. We are the dominant species on the planet. We are the baddest game in town. We contain everything that there is to know as far as knowledge, and we have all the technology we need, and we're just brilliant. That's kind of how we see ourselves. But we could just be a speck. And really, if you look at the size of the entire universe, we really are just a speck. I mean, hell, we're just a speck in our own galaxy. I mean, our solar system, the Earth is a very small part of. And we're a very small part of the Earth, each one of us. So if it keeps on going and going and going as it gets larger, that really puts things into perspective. And it's kind of sobering, really, when you think about it. Now, I don't know if that's true. I don't know how much of any of this is true, really. A lot of it is just theory. I can tell you that a lot of the top astrophysicists in the world believe that the multiverse theory is real. They believe in string theory. They believe that there are an infinite number of universes. So what I'm talking about here tonight is not out of the realm of possibility. It's not fairy tale land. And I think that a lot of these old legends and the lore of different ancient civilizations, we always say on Staring that there's a nugget of truth to every legend. So what if this technology at one time on our planet existed, and an ancient civilization was able to harness this technology and open portals, but a catastrophe happened and wiped them out, all but a few. Now these few people would begin to rebuild the world. Different technology would develop, like I said earlier. But these people would also tell stories of how things used to be. That's how ancient people passed knowledge on to the next generation, was through stories. And as stories go, generation after generation after generation, they get exaggerated. And people kind of forget parts. And so they kind of try to recreate it the best that they can, but they kind of mess the part up a little bit, and they tend to embellish it a little bit, and it gets softer and softer around the edges as it goes. And then what you're left with at the end is a story that has a basis in truth, but some of the details are wrong, some of the places that they say are wrong, because they don't remember it, the whole thing. You know, they were told a story by their father, who was told a story by their father, who was told a story by their father, on down the line. And it's like that old game of telephone that we used to all play in school back in the old days, to where you start with one story, and by the time it gets to the end of the line, it's different than the way it started. But there's still that nugget of truth. So could have some of these legends and lores been based on things that were found and seen in other dimensions or other universes? If that ancient civilization was able to master this technology, and they were able to travel and to see these other universes and see these crazy, weird sights of different monsters and creatures in these other places, that knowledge being passed down from generation to generation in the form of a story becomes more and more fantastic as it goes. But what if it was based on real stuff, real creatures that these people actually saw and interacted with, but it just got exaggerated over time? Very interesting idea. And I think that whether it was interdimensional creatures or portals that were traveled through to see these creatures, or whether these creatures, some of them actually existed on our planet at one time, which I think is also true. I think that some of these things are based on actual animals that existed. I think dragons are based on actual animals that existed and these people interacted with. Now, were the dragons gigantic, armored, fire-breathing monsters? Probably not. But if you look at a dinosaur, that's a damn dragon. A pterodactyl flying around, to somebody who didn't know what the hell a pterodactyl was, would be a monster. That thing would be flying around, it would swoop down, and it would pick up kids and women, small people, it would pick them up and take them away and eat them. And that'd be pretty damn scary. And I can absolutely see how that knowledge would be passed down from generation to generation, and parents be warning their children, hey, when you go outside, you watch out, because there's some flying monster that'll come down and eat you. And I can see how that story would get exaggerated a little bit to make it scarier so that the kids would pay attention and really watch out, because you don't want that thing getting you. So it morphed from an actual animal that was dangerous, that you had to really look out for, into this mythical creature that could do all of these fantastic things. And I'm not saying that it couldn't breathe fire. Who knows? There's a lot of animals that can do some weird stuff. You got spitting cobras that can spit venom like 6-7 feet into your eyes. That's crazy. There's a shrimp that lives inside the ocean that can vibrate its body and let out a sonic scream-like thing that can literally kill other life in the ocean. That's insane. There's all kinds of animals that can do very, very weird stuff. So the idea that maybe an animal could shoot fire out of its mouth, who knows? They can shoot acid. So if you can shoot acid and you can shoot venom, why couldn't you shoot fire? Who knows? Maybe it was not fire necessarily. Maybe it was some sort of liquid that would melt your skin. Some kind of venom that would melt the skin. That exists today in different poisonous snakes. They have the ability to bite you, and their venom will cause your skin to rot away and eat itself. And almost look like it's melting off. That exists. So why is it beyond the realm of possibility that there might have been a prehistoric creature, a real animal, that possessed that same type of venom, that it could literally shoot out of its mouth just like a spitting cobra does, and when it hit your body, it melted your skin? Makes sense to me. And over time, that turned into fire coming out of their mouth and melting your skin. So I think a lot of this stuff is based on actual creatures. Yes, it's exaggerated, and yes, we don't see them anymore. But that doesn't mean that they never existed. If you sat down with somebody who had never heard of dinosaurs before, and you explained what a pterodactyl was, and you explained what a T-Rex was, and what a raptor was, and what all these different dinosaurs were, that person would think you're crazy. There's no way these things existed. I don't see them. Where are they? You mean there was giant monsters like a brontosaurus that was the size of a skyscraper? You're crazy. There's no way that existed. If you didn't have that knowledge, you didn't know that it was there, you've never seen it before, you wouldn't believe it. The only reason you believe it now is because somebody told you it was true. You've never actually seen one. You could say, well, James, I've seen the bones in a museum. Well, not really. What you've seen is plastic. You don't actually see the dinosaur bones. The bones that are in the museum, that are all put together and standing there looking all cool, those aren't actual bones. That's just a replica. The actual bones are not there. The actual bones are in the bone room. They're kept in drawers in climate-controlled areas so they don't disintegrate. So you're not actually seeing real dinosaur bones when you go to the museums. You're seeing a replica made out of either plaster or ceramic or plastic. So you haven't actually ever seen dinosaur bones. You've just seen a model of dinosaur bones that was made out of plastic or something. All you have is somebody's word that says, yeah, they existed, trust me, we have the bones in the back. Well, can I see the bones? No, you can't see them. Now, I'm not saying dinosaurs didn't exist. That's not my point. But my point is, I think a lot of different things did exist that we've just never heard of. And if we had that knowledge, it wouldn't seem so out of the realm of possibility for us. So that's about all the time that we have for tonight's show. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm going to throw over to Old Boy for his final shout-outs, and then we will wrap up.
Thank you, brother. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. It kind of went from the portals, Nephilim, and finally got some Lovecraft in for the first time ever, and I'm kind of happy about that. So you guys want to listen to our shows on Parax Radio on Sundays, 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern, and then on Tuesdays, the Best Of Show. Check that out. Or you can go on James Hershey's YouTube page and subscribe and listen to all the new shows and all the old shows. There's a lot of content all over the place on there. The paranormal news James does for little side things and stuff like that. You can check that out. The Tells the Abyss shows are on there. So check them out, guys. If you want to buy merchandise, he'll tell you where to go. I hope everybody has a good night. Misfits, sugar ladies, monster lovers, and demon hunters. I love you and blessed be, and have a good night.
The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where everything is. The link to the merchandise store is in the description box of the videos. It's free, almost 1,000 videos. Very cool content. Please go check it out, subscribe, and enjoy. Thank you guys for hanging out with us again this week. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next one. Until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.